All right. This is great because we're counting down the top 3 podcasts of 2024. And this one, actually, I have to give a little credit for my client's heritage out in Chico, California. I was texting them and we were talking about some topics to go over the team. And I came up with pick up the darn phone. Darn can be replaced with any D word of your choice. But this is a family friendly podcast because many people might be dropping their kids off at school while listening to this. But pick up the darn phone. Oh, like we are in a service-based industry, which means we need to be consistently connecting with our clients. And the phone is still very hip and trendy, everybody. Emailing doesn't have the same context texting does, and it certainly doesn't build the relationship. You're not going to hear about my dog America if you text me. I'm not going to be like, oh, look at America today. You get to know me, we change the tune. So we have to balance being efficient and effective. And the phone is still phenomenal use of your time. How many emails back and forth could we save? So check out our podcast on Pick Up the Darn Phone. And I think you'll be able to see that we need to be connecting more with our clients and not just pushing it away. I think that there's still a huge opportunity for phone calls. And even if the person doesn't pick up, it's still the intent that a real human could hear your tone of voice.
We should be wanting to communicate. Our customers are our opportunities. If we don't have customers, where are we? We don't have a job.
This is a good and juicy topic. So a couple months ago, I had a client who reached out and said, could you do a video for me? And I'm like, yeah, what are you thinking? Because that happens a lot. A lot of our videos on YouTube or podcasts or anything come from client requests. And she's like, can you do one on pick up the damn phone? And I modeled it to darn because we have different levels of, sensitivity. And I talked to her for a while and she's just like, everybody's hiding behind email. And it's ridiculous. Like, we all just want to email. I don't know if everyone's grumpy or depressed. We don't want to talk to people, but we are in a people business and we need to pick up the darn phone. And I was like, okay, we could do this. So I went off for about 6 minutes and they all died laughing because, it's something I believe in and it's hard, right? Like in your world, a lot of times we're so in front of our screens that picking up the phone seems like an inconvenience or we're bothering somebody. But I kind of think it's refreshing. And doctors don't leave bad news on email or voicemail. So why are we picking up the phone? I mean, really, when you get a phone call from your insurance agent, generally it's not positive news. Like, hey, we're paying your policy off today. It's illegal, so that will never happen. So what do you think about picking up the darn phone?
Well, it used to be showing up to people's houses and knocking on the door. And then it became picking up the phone. And then it became the internet and it went all to email. And I think we definitely hide behind the screens and we don't pick up our phones. And we complain about the lack of communication and the misunderstandings that happen through text and email. What we're not thinking about is the fact that if we were to pick up the phone and have the conversation with someone, we would get rid of all that. It would all be gone because we're actually talking and communicating. So I think it was when I heard you say that, when this came up, I was like, wow, yeah, pick up the darn phone. And then a lot of our slides say you're talking to the wrong person. And I was like, Kelly, what does that mean? And she was like, well, if you're talking in your head and you're trying to convince yourself not to pick up the phone because it's a hard conversation, that's when you just need to pick up the phone. Mm-hmm. There were some sales calls that I had to do or something, and I was delaying them because I didn't want to pick up the phone because I didn't want to mess up because I felt like I didn't have the confidence with the programs. But then I realized I've just got to pick up the phone. I just have to pick up the phone. And so I started picking up the phone and, I get that feeling when I used to do this with life insurance. You pick up the phone and you start getting positive conversations and then you go on this uphill, not the snowball downwards, but the snowball upwards, where it starts rolling and you're in a good mood and you're happy because people are answering, you're smiling. People can hear that over the phone. So the more you pick up the phone and get back into the habit of using the phone and talking to your clients, I think the clients will appreciate it. And I think you'll start appreciating it more too. And it helps so much with clarity. It makes the conversations clearer. And I've done it recently with a couple of consultants. I'm just like, this is a 2-minute conversation. Why am I emailing it back and forth, back and forth? Let me just pick up the phone and ask the question and I can solve the problem much quicker and it can be clearer.
Well, that's the difference of being a remote company, right? If we were all together, it'd be like you'd walk by someone's desk and say, "Hey," you know what I mean? Like, "Hey, what's going on? Let me help you." When you're all over the place, it's like a big difference of you don't know where somebody is. Are they at their desk? Or are they not? Like you wouldn't pop in the bathroom and be like, "Hey, I got a question." But
Unless you're a child or a pet,
yeah,
they do that all the time.
I know. I read this funny meme about maybe my dog follows me in the bathroom because I follow her to the bathroom.
Yep.
She's not wrong on that one. So one of the things I think we have to all be really cognitive of is as you're building your processes is to build in the idea of picking up the phone. And like, hey, especially in commercial lines, I hear all the time, like, well, I emailed them. I was like, you ever meet a business owner who, like, you know how many emails are mostly in agency owners or business owners' inboxes? Like 1 billion. And maybe it's going to junk or spam. Like even our secret shoppers, sometimes people are like, well, I did send them the quote. Here it is. Well, it went to their junk or spam. Like that doesn't necessarily help everybody's scenario. I think what's happened with the phone though is like there's this stigma of like even my friends, like we talk on the phone when it's serious. Or like there's a lot of communication of planning that has to happen. And it's
when you're texting, right?
Yeah, we're texting. My friend's got a milestone birthday. And we're gonna go to Banff, Canada. And I was like, okay, what day this week are you free for a phone call? And she's like, well, who are we? And I was like, it's like 10 years ago, we used to just pick up the phone like when we were driving. I'm like, right. But in 2024, we plan phone calls. Because I'd like to be available for your consideration. And she started laughing. She's like, it is actually better because Wednesday works. So I was like, okay, we'll plan Canada Wednesday. So I think that there's this stigma of like, okay, the only people who use the phone are telemarketers, bill collectors, everything else. My mom, my grandma doesn't text, but I think that there's still a huge opportunity for phone calls. And even if the person doesn't pick up, it's still the intent that a real human could hear your tone of voice.
Well, and when you do call, be hopeful that someone answers the phone.
Universe.
Don't just like, oh, I hope it's voicemail, hope it's voicemail, because you don't want to talk to them. That's not how it should be. We should be wanting to communicate. Our customers are our opportunities. If we don't have customers, where are we? We don't have a job. So we have to be excited to talk to our customers and, how are you and how are your grandkids and how are the dogs? Talk to them like they're humans. I'm really, really, really bad at this because I am so driven. When I talk to people, I go right to the point and I have to really slow down and say, wait, Happy New Year. How are you? And so I've been making some notes for clients about, when they mention their kids' names, I've been making notes on that because we need to start paying attention to that and connecting with those clients first and foremost, so they can trust us to actually have the knowledge to cover them properly.
Yeah, definitely. And, this goes into the conversation that we've had some times before, but agencies asking what's your preferred method of contact and people say text. That doesn't mean you can't pick up the phone. It's preferred. And you could text them and say, hey, I need to catch up with you on a few items. When can we talk? But I think the other thing I see a lot happening, and this is like there's different personas inside of agencies, but some will fight me and say, well, I like to cover my butt by making sure it's documented in an email so I can put it in the system and protect the agency from E&O. And I say, yes, 100%. But you can also pick up the phone and then send the email. It's that efficient and effective, right? So you may go back and forth on a ping pong channel here with, talking about something complicated in insurance, where if you just picked up the phone and sent them a recap, your argument of having it documented would have been the same.
Well, and when we didn't have computers, how did we document things? We wrote it down. So we were still doing double the work, to document stuff that we had to do. So, I think laziness is unfortunately a huge part of this. We rather get it done, do it the easy way. And the easy way is email and texting. And it puts it kind of in the other person's time frame. We're not bothering them, We don't know if they're on the phone or if they're in a meeting, so we just send those text messages. But you could always text and say, "Hey, do you have a minute?"
Exactly. And I just want everybody to remember too, like, we're not the most trusted industry. and, and so you overcome trust and build trust by authentic human interaction. So many agencies say, it's like funny. There's agencies who like don't have any automation. And then there's agencies that like over automate everything. And I'm like, gosh, there's a middle of it. And I worked for a company used to call it like technology assisted service or technology assisted sales, but it's not service only or sales only through technology. And I think we have to remember that if you're not getting a response, you need to pick up the phone. Like it's not going to hurt anybody. And we do it here. We have a 2 follow-up rule and then we pick up the phone. And it's funny. People are like, "Oh my gosh, your email is going to junk or spam. I'm so sorry. Let me help you." Or I put up a rule because I watched your time management class and all your emails were now going in this folder. I didn't know that. Let me fix that and let me help you. So just remember, like, the way that we're going to get ahead in insurance is by picking up the phone, and the way that you're going to communicate this to your agency. So let's imagine you have 15 people, okay? And all 15 people come with their own background and values and comfort level. Like you said, sometimes maybe early on here, Teresa, you were like not as comfortable picking up the phone, right? So when it's not clear what to do, what do we default to?
Yeah.
Yeah, and what's comfortable for us, right? What's our normal? So, you have some people who maybe, have been doing this forever that would rather pick up the phone and they end up having a 45-minute chat about politics and the town council and the sick Aunt Betty. And about like 20% of that is insurance. And then we struggle to keep up, right? And then you have other people who like the phone rings and they're like, I'm going to see what they want and get back to them later. And so like there's this whole spectrum of people with the phone. When you work on your agency processes, though, you intervene and say your expectation. Without that, everybody can apply their own version of what they think is best.
Yep. And everybody's own version are all going to be different.
Very, very much different. Very, 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 very much so. And so then that leads to frustration because maybe the producers say, well, sometimes they pick up the phone, sometimes they don't. Then it leads to, maybe somebody's somebody's able to get through their tasks and put their feet up at the end of the day because they just rush through everything and other people are struggling. And so when you have the right procedures and everything is uniform and you can scale and make sure everything's working correctly. So picking up the darn phone is critical. Don't miss it out. Don't be shy about telling people when to pick up the phone and when not. I think it's so incredibly important. And if you need help with your procedures, guess what, Therese? Can we help them with their procedures?
Absolutely. We're here for that. Yes. Yes.
We have a whole 10 procedures, 10 ridiculously amazing procedures that talk about when to pick up the phone. Even we have one on how to answer the phone, transfer the phone, what can go to voicemail. Because it's funny, I remember during COVID, I did a lot of video, and one that got a lot of attention was the one I did about why no one wants to take a phone call in an agency. Because the poor person who's answering the phone, I felt real bad for these people, right? It's like, they're like, "Hi, I have Teresa on the phone. She's just bought a vehicle." And they're like, another phone call. Is there anybody else working today? Are you sure I'm the one that should take it? What's their name? And I'm like,
let me transfer them. Let me put them in voicemail. I mean,
and this poor little person, she's just a little person trying to get the phone call. Somebody's excited. They bought a car and they're trying to get insurance. And we like bite the head off of the person transferring the call. And I was like, it's like literally, and it's like, why are you taking out the person trying to transfer the call? They're doing their job. They didn't like text a whole bunch of people like, call in today. Betty's really, really upset. Let's just really put her over the edge. And so like, I just did this whole thing. And then I finally just got really sick and tired of like every agency I walk into, people like, we need someone to answer the phones, and we get it, and then we yell at them. Like, we gotta go back. You people could pick up the phones, save some payroll, and then you just yell at yourselves. just understand that, hey, the phone, very important, very critical, and very awesome at the same time.
There's one secret. When you pick up the phone first and you call your customer first, then you don't have to worry about the angry customers calling in.
Or how many customers are angry because they can't get somebody. Like, like when a boss I used to work for, he goes,
Isn't that what we do? Don't we sell insurance? So when someone calls in to get a quote, shouldn't someone be available? He's like, we don't sell cars, we don't sell pastry, we sell insurance. So imagine going to a bakery and they're like, oh, no one's available to get you a pastry right now. And it's just like, I think go to a car dealership, be like, they can buy a car, and they're like, no one's free. Let me put you, can you just go over there? When someone's free, we'll let you know. And he went off, and I was like, that's very smart thing is we are here to sell insurance. And when no one's available to sell insurance because we're all too busy
Yeah.
and there's so many other things going on that sales is an inconvenience, we just simply won't get ahead. So, and I'll say this, and people get upset, and we'll get some people who don't like this comment, but I believe sales, a new business lead should be prioritized over an existing customer.
Yeah.
And people get pissed about this because it sounds so crass, but I want you to hear me out. Like, you need to set reasonable expectations with your customers. And when new business comes in, they are shopping and they do not wait. So you need to catch it and then set the expectation. But nobody should have to wait to talk to somebody about getting a quote.
First impressions.
Mm-hmm.
That's your
And we
first
need to be on our best when we're courting somebody versus, later on. Now, I'm not saying give your customer bad service. This is where everybody goes like, it's not black or white. Two things can be true at the same time. You can give good service and still prioritize sales.
Absolutely.
So keep that in the back of your mind. So check out our process packs. Teresa, it's been a pleasure. I hope everybody gets processes. I hope everybody wants processes. I hope processes are like your Valentine's Day gift. I guess it's not Valentine's Day. Your
St. Patrick's Day.
tax day. It's April. No, this is March. We shoot these in advance. St. Patrick's Day. It's your pot of gold to your team. And then it's also, I think March is daylight savings time, right? I get real confused on that one. Anyway, give your team processes anytime. I mean, you could be watching this in October. Don't wait till March. Like, just go for it. When do you wish you had processes? Either 2 years ago or right now. So don't hesitate. All right, everybody. Thank you so much for listening, and we'll see you in our next podcast.
Well, I hope you enjoyed Pick Up the Darn Phone. I get kind of fired up on it because it is frustrating. I know people say, I want to be texted, I want to be emailed. So do I, but not when it's complicated. So make sure your team is still picking up the phone, connecting, using their beautiful voices where you can hear tone and inflection, and do something so traditional that we're going to bring it back in 2025 and make it trendy all over again, like flare pants and crew socks and everything else out there that I have no idea about because I'm the least cool person on the face of the planet. Thanks, everybody. We'll see you in our next rehash, which is insurance, sales, and underwriting, how to sell in a hard market.